Princess Anne didn't wait for permission. She didn't call a meeting. She didn't ask for approval. According to whispers echoing through the corridors of Windsor Castle, she moved before anyone else could. And that single decision may have changed everything. Because the moment word spread that Queen Camilla's advisors were preparing to enter a restricted room tied to Princess Diana's personal archives, Princess Anne reportedly rushed into action. Not tomorrow, not later. Immediately, and what she allegedly secured before anyone else arrived has now become the center of one of the most explosive royal mysteries in recent memory. The story begins with an atmosphere that insiders describe as deeply unusual. Windsor Castle has protected royal secrets for generations. Countless documents, letters, records, and private memories have rested behind locked doors far from public eyes. But among those archives, there was reportedly one collection that carried an emotional weight unlike any other. A collection connected directly to Princess Diana. A collection many believed had been safely preserved and largely untouched for years. Yet suddenly, something changed. Questions began appearing where there had once been silence. Administrative requests surfaced unexpectedly. Private meetings were allegedly arranged behind closed doors. Names connected to Diana's past reportedly began appearing in conversations again. And for palace insiders, that alone was enough to trigger concern. Why now? Why after all these years? Why was attention suddenly being directed toward correspondence that had remained protected for decades? What happened next only deepened the mystery. According to palace whispers, members of Queen Camilla's advisory circle were expected to review sensitive materials connected to Diana's archives. Nobody publicly explained the purpose. Nobody offered clarification. But inside royal circles, speculation exploded. Some believed the review was routine. Others weren't convinced. They reportedly viewed Diana's private writings as sacred pieces of history that demanded extraordinary care. Then came the moment that changed everything. Princess Anne allegedly received word about the planned visit only shortly before it was due to happen. And instead of waiting for explanations, she acted fast. Witnesses reportedly described an atmosphere of controlled urgency as Anne made her way through Windsor Castle. This wasn't the behavior of someone handling a minor administrative matter. This was the behavior of someone who believed something important was at stake, something worth protecting before anyone else arrived. And that's exactly what makes this story so fascinating. Princess Anne has spent decades building a reputation as the monarchy's most disciplined guardian. She rarely creates headlines, she rarely participates in palace drama, she doesn't rush toward controversy, which is why her sudden intervention immediately raised alarm bells throughout royal circles. Before Queen Camilla's advisors could reportedly reach the room, Anne had already entered. No public announcement followed, no official explanation emerged. But insiders claim the atmosphere inside Windsor shifted almost instantly. Staff members who expected a routine procedure suddenly found themselves exchanging nervous glances. Conversations reportedly became quieter. Questions began spreading from office to office. What exactly had Princess Anne found? More importantly, what was she trying to protect? The answers remain buried behind layers of secrecy, but the rumors are impossible to ignore. Some insiders allegedly believe Diana's correspondence contained deeply personal reflections about her sons, William and Harry. Others speculate the letters may have included private thoughts written during the most difficult periods of Diana's life, emotional observations, personal fears, hopes for the future, fragments of a voice that the world lost far too soon. And if those claims are true, the stakes become enormous, because these wouldn't simply be old letters, they would be pieces of Diana herself. As whispers intensified, an even larger question emerged. Why was Princess Anne so determined? Observers began looking beyond the immediate controversy and toward something much deeper, because according to those familiar with royal history, Anne has always viewed family archives differently from everyone else. Where others see paperwork, she sees legacy. Where others see records, she sees responsibility. And Diana's memory carries extraordinary power. Decades after her death, she remains one of the most beloved figures in royal history. Her influence still shapes public conversations. Her legacy still affects palace dynamics. Her name still carries emotional weight that few royal figures can match. That's why many insiders reportedly viewed Anne's intervention as more than an administrative decision. They viewed it as an act of protection. Protection of history, protection of memory, protection of Diana's voice. And perhaps that is where this story becomes truly explosive. Because the moment Anne secured those materials, what initially appeared to be a simple archive review suddenly transformed into something much larger. Questions about loyalty began emerging. Questions about authority. questions about who should control the final pieces of Diana's story. And behind those questions lurked a possibility that made palace veterans deeply uncomfortable. What if those letters contained something important enough to trigger this level of urgency? What if the real significance wasn't the room itself, but what remained hidden inside it? The deeper palace insiders looked into the situation, the stranger everything became. What started as whispers about archived correspondence was now evolving into something far more emotional, far more personal, and potentially far more explosive. Because according to growing speculation inside royal circles, Princess Anne's intervention wasn't simply about protecting papers. It was about protecting Diana's legacy from becoming entangled in a battle over influence, authority, and history itself. As rumors continued spreading through Windsor Castle, attention shifted toward the contents of the correspondence itself. Palace observers began asking a question nobody seemed able to answer. What exactly was hidden inside those letters that could inspire such urgency? Some whispered that the documents contained Diana's personal reflections on motherhood. Others suggested they included thoughts about William and Harry's futures long before either prince stepped fully into adulthood. A few even speculated that Diana had documented private concerns, hopes, and fears she never intended the public to see. Whether any of those theories were accurate hardly mattered anymore. The mystery itself had become powerful enough to fuel endless discussion. What made the situation even more fascinating was the reaction reportedly coming from those closest to the institution. Historians, former palace staff, and longtime royal observers all seemed to agree on one thing: these weren't ordinary archives. Diana remains one of the most influential figures the monarchy has ever produced. Decades after her passing, her name still commands attention, emotion, and loyalty unlike almost anyone else. Every private word connected to her carries enormous significance. Every forgotten note becomes a potential piece of royal history. That realization reportedly strengthened Princess Anne's resolve. Those familiar with her reputation understood something important. Anne has never been driven by headlines. She rarely seeks public approval. Throughout her life, she has consistently placed duty above popularity. So when she moved before anyone else, many insiders interpreted it as a sign that she believed fundamental principles were at stake. In their view, she wasn't reacting to palace politics. She was defending history. Meanwhile, reports suggested Prince William became increasingly aware of the growing controversy surrounding the correspondence. And for William, the issue reportedly carried a weight that no advisor, historian, or palace official could truly understand. These weren't merely historical records connected to a famous royal figure. They were potential fragments of his mother's voice, pieces of a relationship interrupted by tragedy, reminders of a woman whose influence continues shaping his life even decades later. According to royal whispers, William quietly appreciated the importance of ensuring Diana's writings remained protected with dignity and care. That perspective allegedly aligned closely with Anne's own thinking. Both understood that once sensitive materials become the subject of controversy, the focus often shifts away from their true meaning. Instead of preserving memories, people begin debating ownership, authority, and access. And perhaps that was exactly what Anne hoped to prevent. As palace discussions reportedly intensified, King Charles found himself navigating another deeply sensitive family matter. Sources suggested the king was fully informed about the growing concerns and understood the emotional significance attached to Diana's correspondence. Yet the situation placed him in an uncomfortable position. On one side stood Queen Camilla's advisors. On the other stood Princess Anne, one of the monarchy's most trusted and respected figures. The challenge wasn't simply administrative, it was deeply personal. Inside Windsor, the atmosphere reportedly became increasingly tense. Conversations grew quieter, speculation grew louder. Every unanswered question seemed to create three new ones. Some insiders viewed Anne's actions as an act of courage. Others questioned whether her intervention complicated an already delicate situation. But regardless of opinion, one reality became impossible to ignore. Anne had acted first, and by acting first, she had completely changed the course of events. As weeks of speculation continued, historians began emphasizing an even larger truth. Perhaps the real significance of Diana's letters had nothing to do with palace disputes at all. Perhaps their true value rested in what they represented: a preserved voice, a preserved memory, a preserved connection between the past and the future of the monarchy. For many observers, that perspective transformed the story entirely. And so the mystery remains: not who entered the room, Not who arrived too late, not even what was written inside the correspondence. The greatest mystery is why Princess Anne moved with such absolute certainty from the very beginning, why she acted without hesitation while others were still seeking answers. According to the whispers still circulating through royal circles, the answer may lie in a promise, a responsibility, or a deeply personal commitment that has never been fully revealed. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. On that extraordinary day inside Windsor Castle, Princess Anne didn't simply secure a collection of letters. She secured a legacy, and the full story behind that decision may still be waiting to emerge.